different textures of hair going on. So I'm going to try and talk a little bit about all of these options that you might have. But anyway, do the very first step. Ripping off a couple more pieces of tape. Now these pieces of tape, starting off exactly the same with that, 1 to 2 inch piece of tape. And then go ahead and rip that down the middle long ways, like this. And you want to make sure your portrait is basically in the center. Is it going to perfectly line up with the border? No. But I mean, it'll be maybe a millimeter or two off. No big deal. It's basically in the center. And we want to put these pieces of tape up in the top, like this, about an inch or two in from the edges here. That way, while we are working on the transfer, we can regularly flip up the piece of paper and it won't move. Once this thing moves, you're screwed. You're done. Okay? So you want to just take a 30 seconds, making sure it's in the middle. Put these two longer pieces of tape up top so they're like hinges, and then it'll just keep going back down to the same spot. This piece of tape starts just a little bit on the portrait there, goes on top of the drawing paper, and then on top of the board as well. And now at this stage, what we are going to be doing is transferring our proportions with a regular pen. You can also do this with a pencil. I prefer the pen though, so I can kind of like see the lines and stuff. Now, the main way everyone messes this up is they oversimplify stuff. So, like for example, look at this hairline that I have on my portrait of Willem Dafoe. Something like the hairline. I really do not want to oversimplify this detail here. With my pen, I want to try my very best to capture every little detail of the hairline. And with his texture of hair, it's very similar to when we were freehanding the eyeball. Those different like skinny curved triangles. So this is what I'm talking about. Trying to capture every detail of the hairline. The way people oversimplify this, instead of the like organic hairline there, they'll just kind of draw a line. They'll just take 2 seconds and like draw a line like that. We want to be going up into the hair. Super skinny triangles. And that's going to give me a much more realistic result. So that's where I spend the first part of my transfer, is kind of outlining the face. I want to be capturing the perimeter of the face. And this is pretty much my approach to teaching art, is what I call pulling back the curtain. Because this trick I'm showing you guys right now is a trick that a lot of professional artists know about. And the thing about like doing art for money is you got to charge by the hour. And if you make up some rule for yourself, like, oh, I'm going to freehand every single thing I ever do, then your rates are going to be insane. Someone's going to be like, oh, can I get a portrait of my grandpa? He just passed away. You know, I like your portraits. Could you do a portrait of him? Yeah, sure. It's going to be $500 though, because you're spending the first like 10 hours just freehanding proportions. Or if you know this trick, you can speed up the time and you can be like, oh, you know, give me $50. I can do it. So I've actually been able to charge people as much as $200 or $250 for this portrait. Like that Tupac portrait that you see up there. So I'm trying my best to just kind of show you guys my exact process for getting a nice realistic result. And if you're someone who really, really, really wants to draw like very realistic portraits 100% freehand, you know, you got it. You can do that. Just so you know, it does take years and years of practice, which is fine. I think it's time well spent, but you know, not every single person in here is going to make a career out of art. I would actually say the majority of you will not make a career out of art. Maybe, if you're lucky, you'll end up making a little bit of money on the side, maybe some sort of artistic little side hustle. That would be cool. But for a lot of us out there, like what would be successful for me is if you fell in love with just one of these processes, one of these techniques that I'm showing you, and then it's how you could spend your free time. So if you haven't figured it out yet, life is all about a balance. Gotta find a balance, dude. If all you ever do is consume all day long, you're gonna be depressed. That's just a fact of life. If all you do is, you know, consume social media feeds all day, binge watch a bunch of TV shows all day, play a bunch of video games all day, that's all you do, the end of that road is always going to be depression. So the way you balance that out is by creating stuff. I'm not saying that stuff's all bad. It's definitely not all bad. There's a ton of art involved in that, but for you and your own mental health, you need to find this balance of, yeah, I'll consume some stuff, you know, a few hours a day, but I'm also going to spend an hour or two creating stuff. Or if you like to bake, you like to cook, that's another way of balancing that out. It's not just art. Editing video, that would be another one. Making videos, that could be cool. Okay, little pro tip here with the hair. We want to separate highlights from shadows. So for Willem Dafoe's hair here, I'm going to kind of focus on this section, show you how I do that. It's all about sections of hair. You don't want to draw individual hairs, it's more about sections. So once again, it's like this really skinny triangle, and I'm going to do that all along one side of the section of this highlight and then all down the other side of this section of highlight. So then I have like a patch in the hair that looks like that. And then I just do that anywhere that I have a highlight. So it kind of ends up looking like a bunch of zigzags. And I'm taking a little mental note. When it comes to shading, I'm going to leave these sections the white of the paper. So these kind of like organic, curvy zigzags. Now, this might be totally different depending on the texture of hair you have. If you're really lucky, maybe your person is bald, or maybe it's all just one dark blob, then the hair is going to be a little easier. But that's the basic process of sectioning off different areas of the hair. I would do the same exact thing for the really super dark black shadowy areas too. And another little detail about how I'm holding my pen during this, I'm not adding any extra pressure. Some people think they need to add a ton of extra pressure to the pen, like, oh, I need to make sure this stuff transfers. No. It's just the same amount of pressure you would use if you were like writing notes or something like that. Now, to look at this by itself, it's like, man, that looks really confusing. However, when you are studying the reference properly, you will be able to pick out what section is what. And then I promise you, it's not quite as confusing as it may look at this stage. You know, the whole outside of the hair, this is a really nice opportunity to detail that. So this is basically about as detailed of hair as you could possibly have in your portrait. So if you have someone, you know, more simple than this, maybe you just heard me say a bunch of stuff that doesn't even apply to you. That is possible, but we're on to the next thing, dude. On to the next thing. Let's go ahead and transfer some helpful moments of the eyeball. Look at this. Chances are in your portrait, you have a really bright highlight in the eyeball. This is such an important moment. You need to keep this highlight the white of the paper. Or maybe on the glasses frame, there's like a bright white highlight. Or maybe on the lip or the nose, there's a really bright white highlight. Really need to keep that the white of the paper. So for me, when it comes to putting a line around this highlight, I'm actually going to draw an oval that is just slightly bigger. And then after that, I am going line for line with everything else. So I'm going right over top of that pupil. They can try to get a nice, crispy, circular pupil. Going right around the edge of the iris as well. You don't want to make anything up. Do not make anything up at this stage. I know we all practice freehanding an eyeball. That was just for practice, but at this stage, all we are doing is trying our best to go line for line. So every little imperfection that we have throughout the eyelids, we want to make sure we're going over that. And these lines, kind of like a bunch of squiggly organic lines, they sort of end up looking like lines you might see on a map. Which makes sense, because, I mean, we're literally mapping out our drawing right now. Once I take care of that, I'm going to go over these eyelashes. Once again, I'm not making up anything. I'm just drawing a line right over top anywhere I see the eyelashes. So it kind of is like a bunch of little tick marks. Eyelashes are very, very subtle. You don't want to totally ignore them, but you also don't want to go way overboard with the eyelashes. They're going to be nice and subtle. And then we have these different creases around the eye, kind of creases for like eyelids, stuff like that. This is where it gets tricky though, because you don't want to go over every single little line that you see. For example, me, in my portrait, I'm not going to go over any of the lines I see in the forehead, because they're not very dark. It's like a really, really light gray. It's only a little bit lighter than the white of the paper. So the way I'm actually going to be drawing that for my portrait, I'm just going to drag my tort across. I'm not really going to do anything with my pencil there. So areas of the cheeks and the forehead, if you have some creases in there, just leave them alone. You can freehand those later. I'm just kind of doing all the lines that are immediately around the eyeball here. So at this stage, your eyes should look a little something like this. Might be a really dark shadow underneath the eyebrow, but above the eye, I'm going to outline that. And then I'm going to outline the eyebrows the same way that I did the hairline. So, I'm telling you guys, everyone messes up the eyebrows. They just put like a rectangle or a box around the eyebrows. No. You want to go in here. Let me zoom in so I can show you what I'm talking about. Want to go in here, and it's all about these organic, skinny, little curvy triangles here. Pull some long, some short, some medium. Really, really thin. That's what I'm doing along the edges of the eyebrow. So Willem Dafoe's eyebrows are going to look a little something like this. I didn't think I needed to just talk about this, but there are some people who ended up drawing pen on their portrait because there'd be a little section that didn't quite transfer, so they would like picked up the pen and drew it right on the portrait. Do not draw with pen on your portrait here. You know, if there's a little line that didn't quite transfer, you can freehand super light with the pencil.